Hi, good evening, everyone. Are you able to see me and hear me clearly? A quick yes. Okay, wonderful. So for everybody's information, this discussion is also being live streamed on YouTube. Good evening, everyone. Are you able to see? As we had a lot of requests from our YouTube subscriber for a topic like this, so we are also streaming it on YouTube. We will ensure that next 1 hour we discuss some very interesting aspects of interviews that talent acquisition professionals have to give, and you have enough tips and enough information that you have to be able to take it forward. But before I begin, I would welcome you all to this session and welcome all the viewers who are also viewing it on YouTube. So let me just quickly first come to, again, as I say, that a quick check on the CHRMP Academy bit, right? Just in case you have joined from the link directly, which has been shared in the group that you are part of, you can always go to Cpd Calendar. If you're a Cpd member or a certification member with an active Cpd membership, you can go to Cpd Calendar and register from there, because you can choose the topic, because the calendar is populated for the entire month. And whichever topics you find interesting, it's always good to, go in and probably register yourself, because you will get notification. You can add it to your calendar. All that is something that can happen. So this would help you plan better, and you would not miss any exciting session that you otherwise want to attend. For example, day after tomorrow, there is a session, a masterclass on calculating employee engagement index. If that's something that interests you, go ahead and just click on this and register yourself so that you are able to do this across, which is extremely important. Apart from that, anything that you want to learn, just like how Netflix is there, we have HR Flix for CPD members, where you have so much information and some really good information. For example, I really enjoyed the digital HR sessions that was conducted by Disha. I also loved instructional design session by Celeste. There are so many different topics that are there. We have Bloom's taxonomy, we have employee experience, we have focus groups, we have so many things that you can go about learning. So just if you do 2 or 3 master classes or 2 or 3 HR Flixes a week, I think that would be very good utilization of your time, right? Okay, so with this, let me just quickly begin with today's session. And today's session is to help you have very good interview tips for talent acquisition. That is what we are aiming at. And this whole module would be broken down into 2 sessions. Today is session 1. Today we would be talking about the generic questions that may be asked, and also technical questions that may be asked. And we would also help you how to answer that. And towards the end of the session, I'll also be taking your questions in terms of anything odd that you may have faced in an interview, and that would allow us to cater to your individual queries. That is something that we would be able to do. The next session in this series on tips for talent acquisition professional to give very good interviews would be on basic talent acquisition questions and also advanced level talent acquisition questions. So we would also cover this across for you in this next session. As today's session is only 1 hour, adding too much content might not be helpful. Whatever we should do it well. It should be well understood. It should be well taken in. And I think that is what we would want. And technically, this is what we would be looking at covering, right? Okay, wonderful. Any doubts, any questions before we start today's session? Anything anybody would like to ask before we begin? Thank you, Farooq. Anything else? Anyone else would like to ask anything? Okay, great, Mariam. So yes, so let's begin. So kindly note that your participation is key to make these sessions worthwhile. If you are participating, remember you are not only bringing in your element, which will help others, it would also make others think and may lead to more being absorbed from the session. A lot of times as a facilitator, you may miss on certain finer points, but participation really helps us, right? So for example, if I look at any average classroom, and if I look at the number of experience of years people are present, then on an average, we would be having, 50 to 100 years of experience in a classroom, right? So just in case, if you go about asking questions, it's learning for everyone, including the facilitator. So please feel free to ask as many questions as possible. You can raise your hand. If I'm covering something up, I'll finish it and then I'll give you an opportunity to talk about. But remember, especially today's topic, it's even more relevant for your participation. So please feel free to participate. That's extremely, extremely, extremely important, right? Okay, great. So let's start with the generic questions, right? I think there are different generic questions. The world favorite is tell me a bit about yourself, tell me about yourself. What are your interests or hobbies outside of work? How did you get into talent acquisition? How would your previous employer describe you? Why are you interested in this industry? Why do you want to work for our company? What skills make you qualified for this role? What are the steps of your talent acquisition process? How do you stay up to date with hiring trends? How can you help our company find better candidates, right? So technically, this is one set of questions that we are talking about, which are very, very generic questions, right? And the key here is that a lot of times I have seen that the entire interview is filled with generic questions, right? However, remember, generic questions becomes technical, or they get deeper into basic or advanced level of TA questions, depending on the job role and depending on the organization. So if organization is very, very structured and it has a very, very powerful hiring mechanism, then they would ensure that they do a perfect fit test before hiring you, right? And a lot of times one question leads to other. So a lot of times what you answer for any of these questions would lead to the next question being asked, right? So remember, a lot of times it's also kind of indicative to us of where we want to take the interview ahead, and where we would want our comfort area to be exhibited more, and probably discuss those elements more in an interview by quoting examples or bringing in elements from there. So this is very, very important questions, especially when you are answering while you are answering any question that is being asked, right? Okay, so great. So let me start by tell me about yourself. I think this is one question that I've asked a lot, and I've seen multiple answers that are coming in, some really funny ones, some hilarious, some serious, some very serious, some very, very descriptive, some very, very long. So ideally, how do we answer tell me about yourself, and what should be the length, what should be the content, etc., and how we should answer it so that it becomes it helps us in an interview, because invariably this is something that would be asked in an interview. That would be the beginning question, isn't it, right? And also keeping in mind the various formats or various variations to this question. So they may say that tell us a bit about your profile, run me through your resume. Technically, it's all various versions of tell me about yourself, right? So when we talk about tell me about yourself, I think extremely important that that you do not get into detailed description of who you are. I think, remember, this is a professional setup that we are talking about. A lot of times, I personally find information about family and where you are living, etc., unnecessary. It is more specific to your role and your experience and your education, etc., that would matter. So restrict your answer to that. That is a good practice. So you can start with your name, you can start with your experience, you can start with your education. If experience is more than 2 years or 3 years, always start with your experience first, and then you can end it by saying I'm a graduate from, or I'm a postgraduate in an MBA, or you can say anything that you may feel like. But the most important, or I would say what makes tell me about yourself is a very, very important question, or the most important aspect of this question is that this question can become a hint. The way you answer it, it can become a hint for future question being answered, right? Which is very important. And in fact, there is a technique called turning the tide, which allows us to do that. So, for example, if I'm answering, tell me about yourself, and if I say my name is Animesh and I have 18 years of work experience in HR consulting and working with organizations and setting up HR analytics departments and HR, creating HR policies and doing compensation benchmarking. And I am very, very enthusiastic about, reading books, traveling. And there are some wonderful challenges that I have solved in analytics, leading to success for organizations, or leading to success for HR departments, etc. Let's say if I answer something like this, and I stress on what I'm ending, there are some wonderful problems that I have solved using HR analytics, right? And if I stress on that, then mostly, or let's say if at a very basic level, I love reading books, right? So mostly the next question will be something on what kind of books you read, right? Or, okay, what kind of problems have you solved, right? Or in the case of talent acquisition, if I have to make it more specific, right? I have created some wonderful successes and probably reduced offer drop rates in talent acquisition, which was, an amazing experience and something that I was rewarded with, right? So they would want to know how did the person, something that leads to some inquisitiveness, right? And that inquisitiveness necessarily is not flashy, but something which is your strength, right? Which is something that you can talk about, something which is your comfort zone, right? So if you actually have reduced offer drop rates, or if you have reduced cost of hire, or if you have improved interview success rates, or optimized talent acquisition process, or whatever you have done, right? If you are able to effectively, talk about that particular area, and that is your area of comfort, then I think it becomes a very, very powerful question. Because now the next question that is being asked is about how did you optimize the talent acquisition process? Next question becomes in how did you reduce offer drop rates? Next question becomes how did you reduce cost of hire? And then you have a series of 2 or 3 questions which you have answered well, which means you have had a good start, right? And remember, just how in cricket, if the first 15 overs you score well, technically, if you go by ratio, most of the time the team wins, right? The chances or the probability of you clearing the interview is much higher, right? So good start. I'm not saying if it's a bad start, it doesn't mean you would not do. A lot of people do catch up there, but I'm just talking about, it's always good to, because it generates confidence. It helps you, answer well. And so use it as a tool. Tell me about yourself, run me through your profile, take me through your resume, take me through your work experience, etc. Something that would lead to more question being asked and better answers being done, and leading the interviewer to your comfort zone, because you are more interested in the interview, right? It is a job for you. It is a job for him. He's in meeting, interviewing. So much is happening, isn't it? Right? So that's a good way of starting, and that's why I've spent so much time on this first question, which is a simple question but an important one, right? Any doubts here? Any questions here? Anything anybody would like to ask before I move ahead with the next question? Vikram, I can see your chat in. So yeah, I mean, so this is CPD membership sessions. You have taken HR Analytics certification, so I'm sure you would be attending those sessions. But these are all membership sessions, and these are informative sessions. So I think being here, hanging out here would only help you have better information. So if you find it interesting, hang on here. And these are part of our career development series as part of CPD memberships, where today's topic is how to crack talent acquisition interviews, or tips for cracking talent acquisition interview, or how to, probably a mock-up for talent acquisition interviews, right? That is what we are discussing, right? Okay, any questions? Anyone, anything anybody would like to ask? Okay, right. So a simple hint to everyone: when just participate. You can either unmute or you can also type in. I see 2 no's, so I'm moving ahead. But I would like better participation in terms of so that I know everybody is with me on this, right? Very, very, very important. Yeah. Okay. Next question: what are your interests or hobbies outside of work? I think it's something which is because a lot of times people end up answering work-related hobbies. I like knowing more about my field, and so they generally to maybe break the ice, or to have a generic conversation, or to make the candidate comfortable, or to improve the employee experience. Candidate experience. I think these questions are being asked, and be genuine about it. Whatever your hobbies is, if your hobby is reading, talk about that. If your hobby is browsing, talk about that. Sometimes giving negative information may not be very helpful, right? For example, if you talk about, let's say, social media, or if you talk about Instagram, or if you talk about certain things which may leave an impression, because sometimes I'm not saying that people actually do it, but sometimes interviewers tend to get judgmental, right? Oh, so okay, so Insta is something that is keeping then the person would be doing social media always, all the time, right? So avoid maybe certain answers which may lead to some kind of perception, right? And this does happen, right? One interview that I was part of, a panel, one of the candidates which was fitting wonderfully well, when this was asked, a similar question was asked of what do you enjoy doing other apart from your work time? They said, I like sleeping a lot. And this was taken negatively by the panel, right? I didn't understand. I did stand for the guy, but then it was a panel, and I got voted out because people felt that if the person sleeps a lot, he may not be available for late night meetings, maybe late for work. But then again, there are policies for that. So I didn't get the logic for a candidate who was a good fit. But then sometimes negative information keeping away does help, right? So remember, important element, but otherwise be genuine. Tell them, and if you're saying something which was your hobby, or saying something which is your hobby, or saying something that you think you are passionate about, but actually, at least gather some information about it, right? So if you're traveling, or if you like adventure sports, or if you like anything, then have some information about it, just to be able to have a better conversation, right? How did you get into talent acquisition? I think avoid answering it was by fluke, I had nothing else to do. When I finished my college, when I came out, this was the opportunity that was lingering, or maybe there was, somebody may say that I was guided by my brother or sister. I mean, I'm not saying that's a wrong, and that's a neutral information, but sometimes it makes sense to have the baton in your hand while answering this question, right? And I think a good way to answer this question will be to say that as I finished my graduation, or let's say you are doing you are already working in some other field, and you are probably transitioning, or you are moving away from your current field and moving into a new field. And if you put that across, and even if there is a change in, let's say somebody is an MBA HR, or somebody is an MBA in marketing and taking up a talent acquisition job, or if you're not an MBA, if you're a graduate and you're now taking it up, it's always good to talk about your skills, right? And your competency, so that it looks like an informed decision that you're making, right? So I'm few things that you always hear is because I'm passionate for people, I like interacting, I like talking. I think we have to understand that a lot of jobs, sales also is about talking to people. Then why was it not sales? Because you'll talk much more to people, right? These are generic answers. It doesn't leave a negative impact, but you can get into something more serious and something more informed that you project while in answering this question. And one good way of answering this might be talking about the field, that HR always interests me, and I did an analysis of what my strengths are. And then I realized that my strengths fit in really well with human resources because apart from being passionate for people and interactive and bringing in change, I feel, HR is process oriented, and being able to drive processes or be part of processes and excel in them is my strength, right? And at the same time, when I saw various specializations within human resource, like learning and development or talent acquisition and performance management and policy making and HR operations and HR analytics, I felt that talent acquisition is something where I'm fitting in better. So it was a very, very conscious decision where I see my strength being utilized well for my growth and for the organization that I work with, right? So it would be a very, very wonderful way of answering, because you are technically making sense, right? And you are talking about informed and conscious decision that you're making, right? Okay, does it make sense? Any doubts, any questions in here? Mariam has asked a question. I'll be taking that up. And anybody else, any other question? Anything that clicks to anyone? Okay, so Mariam has asked a very good question. She has asked someone who's a fresher how he would explain his experience in introduction. True, isn't it? Right? Tough spot to be in. So you don't talk about experience. You talk about your graduation. You talk about that I am. My name is Mariam, and I have finished my graduation from X and Y and Z, and I've finished my graduation, post-graduation from Z in my college. I was part of the HR committee. I was part of the HR club. I have participated in various events. I have represented college at various activities. I've also been part of the placement team. I have gone on industrial tours. I have made various presentations to corporates. I won a presentation contest in one of the events conducted by college. I have really explored well the field of human resource, right? In fact, I have taken up a global certification in human resource, which is CHRMP, which has given me exposure to multiple things in human resource, and that makes me even more excited to work for your organization, right? So now you've given two hints here, right? One is that you have explored. So what have you explored about HR, right? Second is that okay, what is this certification? But what have you learned? So now you come to your comfort zone. So in this certification, I have learned on talent acquisition and performance management and learning and development, and in talent acquisition, I have learned selection design, I have learned manpower planning, I have learned behavioral event interviewing. In fact, I have learned how behavioral event interviewing can be better than traditional interviewing and how better results it can go about giving. And I have learned that selection design is about, knowing the job well before creating context and parameters on which it would be done. And you can also conduct interviews which are situational, scenario based, or which are behavioral, and you can talk so much because it's your comfort zone, right? Does that answer your question, Mariam? Good question. Vikram has asked, having experience in some other field like me in teaching but wants to join corporate, so how do I go with an interview? No, so don't worry about that. So for example, you have been associated with field of HR, right? Isn't it, right? So whether it was your education or so focus on your strength. See, technically as interviewees, we tend to focus on what's missing, right? Focusing on what's missing is not our job. It's the recruiter's job. And if the person has done job well, he would take us there, right? Most of the time, you will not find people who have done their job well, right? So you have to understand that we should not drive the interview in our uncomfortable zone, right? Why? It's perfectly fine that somebody who's a postgraduate is an assistant professor looking at moving into human resource, into a corporate role, which is absolutely fine. There is a perfect connect in terms of how you are taking your career forward. You have finished your post-graduation. You are connected with the field of human resource in terms of teaching. You are pursuing a HR analytics certification because that is giving you the right exposure in terms of how things actually happen on ground. And then now you are approaching working in an organization, right? So then talk about it, right? Tell them that I'm an assistant professor in human resource in X and Y and Z college, and I'm sure I'm doing a good job because my feedback is always good, and somehow I feel all that I have learned has to be applied in the role that I'm being we are here to discuss. And there is so much that I have studied and also in my interaction otherwise seen being applied. I'm sure that this is something that I would really enjoy doing. And in fact, currently I'm pursuing a certification in HR analytics, which is not only giving me leverage in terms of understanding talent acquisition processes better, but also in terms of optimizing them, right? So, the kind of case studies and case discussions that I have gone through, the kind of metrics that I understand where, offer drop rates can be reduced, cost of attrition can be reduced, cost of hiring can be reduced. There is so much that can happen, and I'm bringing all this on the table, right? So I'm really looking forward for this transition, right? So now the person will ask, okay, how cost of attrition can be reduced? How cost of hiring can be reduced? How offer drop rates can be reduced? Now, if you're prepared for that answer, then now the focus is not your education. It's not your you being assistant professor. It is about what you have to bring to the job, right? Does it make sense, Vikram? Great. Wonderful. Any doubts, any questions specific to how did I get into talent acquisition? I have answered this. Any doubts in here? Anyone? I need a no or a yes or your question. So please quickly put across if you have any questions. Wonderful. Okay, so let's go ahead. How would your previous employer describe you, right? So again, anybody who's a fresher, this might not be applicable, but if you're experienced, this might be applicable. So yes, but how would you want to answer this? So I think you can be genuine, but at the same time, I think all interview is all about reflecting in terms of what you carry. And in spite of sounding repetitive, it's good to reinforce what you are bringing on the ground or on the table for the job, right? Very important. So I think you can really be a little aggressive about it, right? If not aggressive, when I say aggressive, I don't mean that you have to really go all out, but in a classy way. If you're putting things across, I think it would make a lot of sense, right? So how does your previous employer describe you? I think tell them that I have had wonderful relationship with my previous employer. In fact, there is so much that I have learned in my 2 years of work experience or my 5 years of work experience in the last 2 companies, right? And I think they describe me as somebody who's process oriented, somebody who is honest to work, somebody who brings discipline to the things that they do, and somebody who is consistent. And I do understand that these are common words, but these are rare qualities that I bring in to the job because I have been consistently performing. I have been very disciplined. I follow rules, regulations, policies. I am process oriented. I am somebody who likes to understand things as I approach. I like taking up challenges, and I think in my various discussion with my manager as well as my colleagues, this is the input that I have, right? So these are all supporting skills, right? So sometimes even if you do not really want to focus on something as pure as I always used to reach my target, and that is you talking about yourself, but when you say these things in terms of being consistent, process oriented, and this is what managers have told me and my colleagues have told me, and this is what they have found me to be like. I think that is something that is talking about an environment where skills can harness to achieve good results, right? So makes sense for you to talk at this length, right? Does this make sense? Any questions in here for this question? How would your previous employer describe you? Any doubts? Any questions in here? Okay, wonderful. Why are you interested in this industry? I think so. One was about how did you get into talent acquisition, which was largely in terms of the job role. Another thing is industry, right? Now, let's be specific about this question. Industry, right? There are various industries, right? There is aviation, there is healthcare, there is IT, there's BPO, there is finance, there is banking, right? There is pharma, there is hospitality, right? There is manufacturing, right? So many industries are there, right? So you have to understand that it is not about the job role, it is about the industry, right? And maybe this question is being asked because people tend to leave jobs here in quest for jobs somewhere else in the industry or some other industry which looks better or sounds better or pays better or X and Y and Z, right? So you have to tell them that, again, you have to talk about your skills, you have to talk about your competencies, you have to talk about what you're bringing on the job, but you have to also talk about the interest this industry creates, right? So you tell them that, I think, manufacturing as an industry is, or let's say, if I have to choose a difficult one, aviation or hospitality as an industry has just recovering from, is recovering from what we have seen in pandemic in the last 2 years. So you bring in this element that you understand the industry, right? Manufacturing in India is growing at a very good pace. We have so much campaign in terms of Make in India, vocal for local, or otherwise, if you see, looking at the state that I am in, if there is things that are happening, more industrialization is coming in and more industries are being set up. I think I foresee myself fitting into this industry, which is showing growth. If it is showing growth, if it is not showing growth, then you talk about it being consistent, right? So what I feel is that manufacturing has been very, very consistent industry in the geography that you are in, the state or the country. And then you don't extrapolate it, don't talk about other elements which is being supported by anyone. You just say that, it has been consistent for last 5 years, 10 years. And I think, being an HR in here, or being a talent acquisition folks in here, I think I would be in an organization which is consistently growing, and that matches with what I bring in, and I would be able to explore and dig deeper in terms of not only delivering what I have to deliver to you in terms of maybe closing positions, but also maybe bring in the element of optimizing, because this is something which is very, very interesting. And if you talk about some recent industrial development that has happened, so very, very important that you first bring in an element of what you know about the industry, right? And this comes from studying the organization, right? So do not miss studying the organization, right? On the website, and not only on the website, also on the news, on YouTube, elsewhere. Find about it, right? I recently read an article about your organization, which is doing some fabulous work, right, and growing so well. So I think this is the industry that I want to be part of, and this organization which is doing so good is something that would really excites me, right? So you bring that element in, which is extremely important the moment you have this question coming your way, right? Does this make sense? Guys, is it fine? Any doubts, any questions in here? We are done with slide 1. Any doubts for any of these questions?
Yeah, I have a question. Now, for example, if the industry the organization you want to work for, So can you speak about the organization where you want to work for, as well as the competitors, in terms of how things are going in terms of talent acquisition? Is that a
Yeah,
valid point?
you can, but make sure that you have right details, right? Because I'm sure somebody who is part of the organization would be knowing their competitors, etc. So do not go with half-hearted, half-cooked information. That's very, very important, right? It's fine to talk. I mean, it's fine to talk more about the organization and less about the competition. But even if you mention competition, that's absolutely fine. But you should know your facts. That is very, very important. So, right?
All right.
Yeah. So bring that element in. And if you've researched the organization well, you will be able to talk about it, right? Yeah. So focus because most of the time, a question like this can have another question, or a similar question will be, why do you want to work for our company, right? Isn't it, right? So that gets added, a very, very similar question where it is more about the company, isn't it? Yeah. Good question. Anyone else? Anything else anybody would like to ask? Okay, wonderful. Great. So next question is, next question is that. So why do you want to work for our company? So yes, your question, Stuti, also does fit in here well. Why do you want to work for this company is the question. And I think this is where how you research the company should come in forefront. I'm not saying all these questions are being asked in one interview. These are various questions. So maybe one is asked, one is not asked, right? So don't think that the previous question is also asked and this is also asked, but answer has to be in context of the organization and the industry, even in here, right? So you tell them that in fact, I have been following your organization for a while, and I think I'm so happy to be here. I've been reading news where some very good work is happening in the organization. I follow LinkedIn posts. I got to know about this recent acquisition that the company has done. I got to know about you being in startup, which is growing at a rapid pace. I really like the value. If you don't have news enough, then you know the value and the mission and the vision of the organization, which talked about A and B and C. And I saw that this would be a perfect ground for me to learn and deliver. And I see my skills fitting in well here because this is an organization that I aspire to work for. And this is an industry that is doing well. So I think I would be in a good position being in this, or I would be in safe hands being in, or I would be, growing well, or I would be doing well in your company and in this industry, right? So you can bring this whole element in. But again, the research of the organization is key here. You should go, and it should be a little more detailed. It should not be last minute. You should go and you should research the organization. You should research founder's message. You should see the team. You should go to LinkedIn page and see who are the various people working, what are the designations that are there. If there are any job posts that have happened before, what is the job description, or the job description they have sent, what does it talk about? You should look at the competitors that they have. You should probably look at the revenue, etc. You should know all this information. It's a very so if you are going for an interview, right? Spend half an hour, spend 45 minutes researching the organization. That's very, very important, right? It would never go waste. Even if interview gets cancelled, you get to know about industry and a company, which is good, right? So don't worry about that, right? Just make sure that you have enough information in hand. Right? What skills make you qualified for this role? This is a very, very important question, or another way of asking this question is, why should we hire you, right? And I'm sure this question would have come your way one way or the other. A lot of times traditional interviewing is what is mostly done. People tend not to do behavioral interviewing, which gets more technical. But then if a question like this has come in, where why should we hire you, or what skills make you qualified for this role, then be specific. Tell them that following a process, following solution thinking, meeting deadlines, achieving goals has been my strengths. Right? These are the skills that I have displayed. If you're a fresher, in my college life, in my school and my college, multiple times, right? Or in my previous work experience, many times. And when I was going through the job description, I realized that these 3 or 4 key skills or the key strengths that I have does match the job description well, right? And I think these are the reasons why you should go about hiring me, because I bring A to the role, I bring B to the role, I bring C to the role, and I bring D to the role. And I think this makes me a good fit for this designation, or for me to work on this role, right? Does it make sense? Any doubts, any questions in here? Okay, great. So wonderful. Next is how do you stay up to date with hiring trends? So now, remember, this is just not one question. These are 2 questions, right? How do you stay up to date with hiring trends? Should also include what are the latest hiring trends, right? Very important. So it's not about doing some basic research, and it's not about some generic answer that you need to give. The interviewer is looking for an answer which also does talk about latest hiring trends, right? So you have to be then vocal about it, isn't it, right? So you have to tell them that I think it's a completely different story post-pandemic, right? Or if it's not a completely different story, which is maybe kind of an exaggeration, then you say so much has changed post-pandemic. I think talent acquisition has been like, the crux of or the war of talent has been crazy. And I think to keep me abreast, I like while traveling, listening to some YouTube videos or listening to some interviews of talent acquisition folks. Not only that, I have in my circle, I'm part of various WhatsApp group where I have people who come with experience and who are leading the change and who are working for organizations which are hiring big time. And I do have chit chat and call with them from time to time to get an input in terms of what's happening and what's changing. Apart from that, I also do follow news. I read articles. I have CHRMP and some blogs there, which I find very interesting in talent acquisition trends and what's changing. And it's fascinating to know how things are changing, right? In fact, if you look at the term itself, talent acquisition, it's being increasingly used compared to recruitment, because now we are not only responsible for closing a position, but we are responsible for hiring talent, right? And that does mean that, data from performance appraisals and probation period, successful probation, is coming back to us and probably getting linked back to where and how and who we are hiring, right? So it's a very important element, right, that we have to keep tracking for. But other than that, I think what all I have been reading about e-recruitment, etc., is a completely different ball game now. There's so much of online interview that is happening. There is so many ways an organization can go about making wrong decisions. It is so many small processes that needs to change, from the way emails are being written, to how a candidate should be ready, to how the job description has to be there, to how a candidate, the kind of question that you go about asking, how do you insist on the kind of interview that you would be having in terms of video or otherwise. And there are so many other things that have changed apart from the job roles, etc. And also the source from hire. For example, if you look at the latest apps, A and B and C, they are largely disrupting hiring for entry-level roles, right? Or if you look at, consultancies, then headhunting is something that's really taking shape in our industry at a senior level, right? And if you look at IJPs as a part of process of filling in vacancies, then departments like A and B are really banking on internal resources, taking positions and filling up to this. And this is all data that is there. So it's very, very interesting and fascinating of how things are changing, and I would really want to be part of this changing trend by being part of your organization, right? Does this make sense? Does this answer the question well? Is it making sense? Any thoughts on this? Anything that you would like to ask? Great. How can you help our company find better candidates, right? Very good question, right? How can you help our company find better candidates, right? So how would you want to answer this, right? So it's a scenario that has been thrown to you, and you have to answer well. So first, if a question like this is there and you need a minute to think, then tell them that give me a minute, right? Let me come back. Or you just, if water is there, just have a sip. Give yourself some time. It's absolutely fine, in terms of taking time to answer this question, but structure your answer or have an answer structured. In which way you are attending the session, so you will have a structured answer. You will have recordings to watch, etc. So don't worry. But yes, so tell them that it's really, really important for us to understand that when we are looking at hiring candidates, what is I would want to do intelligent effort, right? I have always worked on having better hiring ratios. And this largely has been the case because I have wanted to understand what the company wants, right? Most of the time, recruiters make mistake because they hire on job description, and job description not necessarily is representative of what is happening 100% on the ground. So obviously, I would like to first talk to the hiring manager, and I would like to get details of the job really, really well, right? And probably I would like to spend 15 to 20 minutes having a complete information gathering, right? And not only that, I would also like to ask that who in his team or her team is performing well, what kind of education background they come back, what kind of companies they come from, what kind of experience do they have, what kind of projects they have dealt with, right? So if I have done my analysis well, if I have done my homework well, I think this would really help me. So one thing that I would want to work on is this element, because the moment I have very good understanding of the role, I think this would translate into my searches, it would translate into my conversations, it would translate into my selections, whom I would bring on the table to be interviewed or to be assessed by the organization, right? This is something that I would really work in terms of helping company find better candidates, right? Remember, this is true for a lot of answers. What does a doctor do when you go to with an illness? They research, right? They ask you questions, isn't it? Right? They cannot prescribe. You cannot solve something. You cannot help somebody without knowing the problem, without knowing what is needed, right? So very, very important. In fact, in BI, there is this whole structure when we consult with companies where we implement BI for them, because BI is giving amazing results, right? It is redefining success rates of hired candidates, right? Really driving talent acquisition well. It is an alignment conversation, it's called. We call it, CHRMP calls it alignment conversation, right? An alignment conversation is exceptionally brilliant in terms of defining the process of hiring. So if alignment conversation is done well, I think 50% of the problem is solved in terms of the kind of candidate that we are looking for, right? So, I mean, that's a more detailed topic. It's a 2-day workshop, and there's a lot of consulting and other things that we do for companies that we work with. But I think one key element here is that. Yes, Tuti, please go ahead and ask your question.
So I have a question. This is in lines with my organization. So there is this department which actually the whole department has got cleared,
Mm-hmm.
and there is only an HOD who is there.
Mm-hmm.
So if a person comes for an interview, if we have a question, like for example, the whole department has resigned, and
Mm-hmm.
if you want to bring in candidates within a week's time, because the business has to run, it's from the business end. So how will you hire candidates and onboard them within a week's time? What would be the recruitment process? What would be the talent acquisition process to fill in
Mm-hmm.
this position within a week? So how do we answer that question?
Right. So yes, I think again we have to understand that again there are two elements to it. One is something extraordinary has happened, right? Yeah, which is an entire department resigning, right? Something that is not heard of, right? And business is in is in a firefighting mode, right? So you have to acknowledge that first. I think when you if a question like this is asked, then acknowledge that. Tell them I do understand that it is very, very difficult situation because we are talking about immediate hiring and business has to run and there are a lot of other things. And I'm sure that talent acquisition has a very, very critical role to play here. And I'm sure at the same time, other processes, other things would be working in a way and participating to give some room to us to be able to make better decisions, because it's not only about closing a position, it's also about somebody who's getting hired should not again resign and go away, right? So first thing that I would want to do is that I would want to know where I can get these candidates and what is possible and what is not possible. And it may include me going for sites. I'm not getting the name of the site, but which largely has people on their notice period. And if there is a quick subscription that I can take, then I would request for a budget which allows me to reach out to this. I would probably be really, really aggressive on open to work profiles. I would probably research companies which have recently laid off on similar roles, and a lot of times this data is readily available on news channels, and also sometimes a list of employees and candidates is also available in LinkedIn or other places. So I would first want to spend, before I frantically get into calling and trying to close, I would first want to get my data right? And I would want to spend a day or two in terms of figuring this out, because that is where the entire effort would be better streamlined, and we would be able to probably work better, right? Then I would look at instances and try getting information of companies where I can offer existing people and they are okay with maybe notice period buyouts, etc., and otherwise, right? I'll also look at if the policy allows hybrid working or remote working, and if whatever is possible. I'm depending again on what you're dealing with. And once I have this sorted out, where I have 3 or 4 things, concrete things, where I can really push things ahead, I would like to move quickly on this. And I think the entire talent acquisition department, or my department, or my team, or me personally, would completely get involved into this, and we would then leave no stone unturned. So we would reach people out through LinkedIn, we'll reach through WhatsApp, we'll call them, we will send them mails, we will make our job look good. We would do some employer branding in terms of what is happening. I would give them very, very realistic perspective of the role and tell them that this is what is needed and this is how it is. And probably I would, this is how I would head. And I'm sure that if I'm putting concrete and intelligent effort, I should get, if not all, then some result at least, which would save the day for the organization.
So, but 1 week's time, will all this get done? Is the this thing question, which if
Yeah,
the
but then
recruiter
again, this is an answer that you have to give, isn't it? Right? Whether it would happen or it would not happen. I mean, currently you are being interviewed, isn't it? Right? Yeah.
yeah.
So if you have to answer, this is the best way to go about answering, right? At the same time, this is the best way of maybe acting on it. Now, again, there would be uncertainty, right? Yeah. Obviously, there would be uncertainty. And there would be no 100% answers. You may get a candidate and the HOD may reject it, right? What can you do? Well, you may get a candidate and they may demand a high salary and nobody is willing to pay that, right? Though the person is ready to join. There are so many dynamics that work around in this, right? and you have to probably bring that element in, but that is when you are inside the system, isn't it? Right? Yeah.
Right.
Right now, when you're outside the system, this is how you do that. And then depending on how, but this is the right way to probably go about it, because most of the time I've seen talent acquisition folks fail because they have not done the research well. Right? Yeah. So if you've researched well, if you have gotten the contact right, if you have thought about it, see, talent acquisition is a very, very creative role, right? It's repetitive and creative. It brings both. It brings challenges and it brings in solution thinking, right? So people who excel in talent acquisition really, really are enthusiastic about it. Otherwise, it becomes, I mean, you will always see either people praising or, absolutely saying, my God, where am I? I'm stuck, right? I feel like a sales guy making so many calls and X and Y. So, they're absolutely opposite 180-degree opinion on these roles, right? I'm not saying, I mean, again, it's about strength and other things fitting in, but a lot is also about how you approach the role, isn't it? Yeah. Any doubts, any question? Very good question. Very, very good question, right? Okay, wonderful. So we are done with this set of 2 sets of generic questions. We are already at 8. So I think what we have to do is we have to make it a 3 series, which is possible with CPD because it's a free flow, this is a membership, but I don't want to attend these questions, very, very important questions, in a half-hearted manner, in a quick manner, where I have to rush things in 10 to 15 minutes, right? But these are the questions I'm letting you know for series 2, which is, do you understand competency-based interviewing? How would you use BI? How would you judge somebody's leadership skill in an interview? How will you ensure? These are all technical questions. This is to test your technical understanding of a talent acquisition specialist or a role that you're talking about, right? So, and there might be more technical questions, but these are some important technical questions that needs to be answered, and each would probably take 3-4 minutes for me to answer. So better done next time. So I think next week we will have a session 2 on this. Or I'll see the calendar and maybe we'll be having this soon. But today what we have done, and again, I would leave the floor open for questions, and you can also ask me your profile specific question or any question that you feel like otherwise, right? Questions on talent acquisition and how do we, if we are appearing for a recruiter's interview or if we are appearing for a talent acquisition specialist interview, then what kind of questions can we face and what are the tips to answer these questions? This is the topic that we have covered today. We have talked about generic questions. Technical questions have skipped to session 2 of CPD. And session 3 would be basic TA questions and advanced TA questions, which may go to session 3 and 4 as well, possible. But general questions that we have handled today is, tell me a little bit about yourself. What are your strengths or hobbies outside of work? How did you get into talent acquisition? How would your previous employer describe you? Why are you interested in this industry? Why do you want to work for this company? What skills make you qualified for this role? What are the steps of your talent acquisition process? I think I missed this question. I'll just answer that. How do you stay up to date with hiring trends? How can you help our company find better candidates, right? So these 10 questions is something that we have answered, actually 9. The 10th one, which I missed, is what are the steps of your talent acquisition process? So again, I think you have to be, so tell them that, the current organization that I'm working with or the previous organization that I have worked with, I've seen 2 similar approaches, 2 completely different approaches, 2 diagonal approaches, where, we normally, most of the hiring that we do is more for firefighting hiring, where we get the nature of projects are such that we need immediate joinees, and that is what we have been working on. So the pressure has been really huge, and the process that is that we get notified about an opening, and then our budget is quickly approved, and most of the time this is something that comes to us, or sometimes we sit together with the hiring manager and with the HR head or talent acquisition head, and depending on number of openings, the timeline of opening and the budget of opening is decided. Based on the budget, I think we break down in terms of where we would be reaching out for roles where we have good budgets. It gets outsourced to consultancies, where we have we look at our internal sources, whatever is the process. So you just go about defining step A, step 2, step B, step C, and then we ensure that we are able to get 10 interviews for each role that is being hired for. And that's the aim that we aim at doing. And again, having a good alignment conversation does help in us bringing fitting candidates. That's always a challenge, but yes. And then we are seeing we made offer, and then the joining happens, and then the onboarding is also something that we are part of, and post which I think the person joins the team, and we get an input after 3 months or 4 months in terms of the confirmation of the candidate, which does reflect on our efforts have made sense and progress, right? So you just go about defining this. If the process is bad, you tell them that I think a lot can be done on the process, but this is currently what we are following. I do recognize there are certain gaps in here because this could have been done better, this could have been done better. But however, I think it has been really fun working there, because in spite of few process lacks that we normally see, and it does happen in talent acquisition recruitment. So even if you're giving a negative information about a process, do cover it up with something positive of the organization, because it's always good to come across positive about and speak that you've enjoyed and you've learned and you've absorbed and you have garnered experience with your last organization. That's what should be rightly projected, right? Make sense, everyone?
Yeah, Animesh, just one question I have, like not related to this 10, 11 questions. I wanted to know the next session, how we'll get to know to enroll and all. So the same way it will be updated?
Yes, it would be updated. So if you go to your oh my God, yeah. If you go to your CPD membership, you go to your academy first, you log in. Now, whether you're a CPD member or you're you have taken a CHRMP certification with free membership or complimentary membership for 3 months.
I have taken both HRVP Advanced and Plus Analytics.
Yes. So now your certification is here, which you can go and you can start learning. But if you see here, you have CPD membership. Can you see this? Right?
Yeah, it is
and
there.
And then you have something called CPD Calendar, right?
Yes.
So the calendar is something that comes in here, and you click on this, and the calendar opens. And once the calendar opens, you can see which sessions are happening. So for example, 26, there is so you will get to see when session 2 for this is happening, right?
Okay.
So you go in there.
I will get to know.
Yes, you register yourself and add it to your calendar so that you don't miss, right? It's very, very important to add it to your calendar as well, because
currently it is not showing. Yeah, currently, Animesh, it is not showing. I think you will update. It's not showing
because it was not expected that the session will get put. But I'll share this feedback with the team, and then not only that, I think what would also happen is you will also have recordings available, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So today's session is really good, and only the thing is we understand only the technical part, because I'm not part of that. No, I do this recruitment, but very less than 20% of my job. So just I wanted to learn. So part of asking.
So number of questions that have been taken today, in fact, Pankaj, are generic questions, right? So
yes.
it are highly customizable to any role, right? For example, tell me about yourself, bring in element of whichever role you are in, or similar things. So I think it's useful any which way. I hope it's useful.
Yeah, technical one where behavioral and all BI and all this is very important now. Because after getting this 10 question answered, I'm thinking that will be very important for the next knowledge.
Certainly, we will be meeting again, and I'll be taking you through those questions as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Okay, great, Pankaj. Thank you so much. Yes, Stuti.
Yeah, I had a question now for all the courses which we are having the lectures, these live lectures. Now, is there a study material which is given at the end of the session, like in a Word format, that whatever is being discussed? Because I think
you're talking about CPD?
No, this session, like now for this session we had right now, for this particular, is there any study material which whatever you have spoken on, is there something which is provided? Because I don't see that. If there is something which I'm missing out, please just guide me.
So what happens is once you are, so these are career development sessions. So mostly you will see them here in Career Central as well, right? Yeah. But technically what I'll show you is that I'll just show you one element. Maybe career development recordings are mostly available. Please just in your support, can you see this support center, right? Yeah. Raise a request where you say that the presentation that is being used should be also added along with the session. So what they would do is that I'm sure they would add it under Career Central, and when they add the, they would edit the recording in terms of making it more efficient, and then they would have this presentation also getting added there, right? Yeah.
No,
But there is no,
I meant to say, is there a
no,
Word document in
no,
which
there is no
they
Word
will
document.
say?
There is no Word. These are just
Okay.
sessions, you know, for you to attend, isn't it? Right?
No,
Yeah.
I mean to say, like, is there any, like, whatever you're speaking, is it written somewhere so that we can go and view it? I mean, we are seeing the session, but if we have a Word document so that we can go and preview it, because we are making
I
notes.
understand. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it will save our time and we can see this study material, see the video. So in that point of view, I was...
That's true. Yes, so that would help actually. So let me check with the content team if they are able to do a transcript for this, right? But transcripts are kind of, you know, because most of it is auto transcript and it doesn't catch Indian English well, right? But I'll try finding a solution to it, right? Let's
Animesh,
see
I think
to what
I
level.
was saying you are no speaking without seeing anything, so I don't think any Word document it is
Yeah,
there.
no Word document is. Yeah, right. But do
So
that.
that
Like
would
for
really
example, in
help
here, if you
actually.
yeah. If you see here, for example, in digital HR, you will find documents, etc., for downloads and other things. For example, if you see here, you will find these elements, right? Can you see this, right? Yeah. So wherever we find it's important and interesting, that is something that we do. But let me raise this up for interviews as well, if they can do transcripts, right? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
Great, wonderful. So thank you so much, all of you, for attending today's session. Hope you found it interesting. You will get a feedback link. Please share your feedback. That really helps us going, and keep enjoying your CPD membership. Thank you so much. Right. Have a great evening, everyone.